In this video, we're going to be taking a look at using Kajabi to deliver automated webinars. And rather than me just showing you how to set it up in Kajabi, I decided also to include a few little tricks to make your webinars a little more polished. But before we get to that, I just want to point out that if you're new to this, Kajabi is way more than just a webinar platform. Webinars, they're just a small part of it. Kajabi, it's a total solution. So if you're building a course or you provide coaching, Kajabi is a platform that's designed to make it so much simpler for you to monetize your knowledge. And to make it really easy for you, I've put a link below so you can download a free trial. And if you do use my link, Kajabi, they pay me a small commission, but it doesn't cost you anything. But what it does do, it helps me make videos like this to help you. Anyway, I've been using webinars to sell stuff online before they were even called webinars. And in that time, I've learned a thing or two. So I'm also going to be throwing in a few tips and a few tricks here and there to help you sell more. So, automated webinars, is that the way to go? I often hear people asking, which is best, live or automated webinars? And it depends. It depends on the price point. It depends on how big your audience is, how active they are. And of course, it depends on how good you are at presenting live. Each one's got benefits. Live webinars, they do convert better, but they're a lot of work. And of course, to do a live webinar, you've got to be live. You've got to be in front of the camera. Whereas an automated webinar, at least when it's done correctly, it can almost feel the same, but it runs on autopilot, generating revenue without you having to do anything, making money while you sleep. And I'll take that any day of the week. And if you're not quite there yet, presenting live on camera, and you'd like the chance to edit out your mistakes before the world sees you, automated webinars, well, they're the way to go. Now, personally, I like to use automated webinars in conjunction with lower priced offers. Offers, say, in the sub-$1,000 range. Now, of course, there's exceptions. I know somebody who sells a $5,000 program via automated webinars, and he sells a lot. But if you do want to go the live route, I did a video on using live webinars on Kajabi, and I'll put a link up here. Now, before we jump into Kajabi and set this up, first you're going to need your video, what you're using for the presentation. Could be a live webinar that you've, say, presented in the past. You've recorded it, maybe even edited it to improve the flow a little. Or maybe you've recorded a video to use in your Evergreen webinar. But assuming you've either got your content already or you're going to be recording it, let's jump into Kajabi and set this up. So here we are in my test account, and to save a little time, I've already created an offer that we're going to sell. If I come down here to sales, and then here under offers, here I've got all my test offers. And for the purpose of this video, let's say it's this offer here. This is the offer that we want to sell via our automated webinar. So let's set that up. So I'll come over here to marketing, and we want pipelines. So to set up our automated webinar, we want to build a new pipeline. So I'll click New Pipeline. When the page loads, we've got all these options. The webinar pipeline that we want, if we scroll down and then click on Legacy Pipelines, we want Webinar. So I'll select that. And here we go. Here at the top, we've got an overview of what Kajabi is going to build for us, the flow of the pipeline, if you like. There's a little intro video on the pipeline being presented by Kenny, the founder of Kajabi. And all we've got to do is click Create Pipeline. Now, Kajabi is going to need a little bit of information to set this up, and we get this box to input the details. I'll give it a name. I'll call it Auto Webinar. We need to select the type. We've got pre-recorded or we've got live webinar. And of course, we want pre-recorded webinar, so we'll leave it on that. And then we need to decide when we want to run our first webinar. And in a minute, I'm going to turn this into a repeating event. But first, we've got to give it a start date. So I'll select tomorrow. I'll just move it to the correct month, which is February. And tomorrow is the 17th. And we'll start our first one at, say, 9 a.m. So select 9 a.m. and then click Apply. And finally, we need to tell Kajabi what we're going to sell with the webinar. So we need to select the offer. So I'll just select the offer. And the offer we want to sell is there. So we'll select that and then click Generate Pipeline. Kajabi does its thing. And there we go. Pipeline built. Now, we're going to have to add a few things in here. And we're also going to make a few little adjustments to make things work a little better, to earn you more money. But before we get into that, let's just look at what Kajabi has built for us. The flow, if you like. Here at the top, we've got the registration page. Customer enters details. This then sets the webinar email sequence into action, and at the same time, they're redirected to the confirmation page. And when it's time for the webinar, here's the page where your video will be viewed, and hopefully your customers will like your webinar, so they're going to click and view your sales page, and then they'll click buy, and that'll take them to the offer checkout. All nice and simple. But before we get into that, the first thing I like to do, because it can come in really useful later and it's not something you can really do after the event, I like to tag anyone who registers. Now, you may not need it, but if at a later date you do want to segment your audience to all those who signed up for your webinar, you can if you tag them. It's just good practice. So we'll come up here to the top. Under registration page, I'll click this little plus icon to add an automation. And then in the then field, we want to add a tag. I'll create a new tag. I'll call it auto webinar and press enter. That tag is now saved if we need it later. Anyway, since this is an automated webinar, we're going to want to set it so it repeats. So we need to come down here and then under auto webinar, this little blue icon here, I'm just going to click on that. On the webinar configuration page, we've got an email sequence here. Well, it's not actually an email sequence, it's actually an event sequence. And we're going to look at this shortly because an event sequence, well, it's got a few shortcomings that we need to address. But first, we need to set the webinar to repeat. This little toggle switch, repeat this event, we'll select that. And now we've got options to decide how often that we want the event to repeat itself. We could run it every hour. We could run it every day. We've got lots of options. What I like to do is run what I call just-in-time webinars. I like to set it to run every 15 minutes. And that way, no matter what time somebody registers, when they look at the available times, they're like, okay, there's one starting shortly. But you can set it for whatever you like. So I'm going to put in 15. I'm going to set the duration to minutes. So that's the duration of the webinar repeating all set up. And then these emails here, we're going to come back to these in a minute because there's something that we need to change in here. And it will make you a lot more money. So we'll come back to that later. So we'll just hit save. So now with that sorted, let's go through the pages. We'll come over here to the registration page. We've got a header and a little bit of information. And of course, we could change this. I could click on the header, come over here, highlight the text and change it. I could put in, let's say, how to start a profitable online business in 30 days. And if we scroll down, here we've got our date and the time of the webinar, and we could change the format if I wanted to. I could click that and change the formatting. I think I'll put it back to how it was. I liked how it was before. And then here we've got our button, our call to action. And what this does, it actually launches a pop-up window with a form to grab their details. Well, actually, it's not a pop-up window as such. It's what they call a two-step opt-in. In fact, let me show you because it's kind of hidden and you'll likely want to edit it. I'll just show you what I mean. If we preview the page, and I'll just click this little preview button to launch it in a browser, the page loads and the customer clicks the reserve my spot to register for the webinar. And here's the pop-up window, or should I say the opt-in window. They'd fill in their details and then they'd hit submit. Now, just in case you want to edit this two-step opt-in, let me show you where it lives. I'll just jump back to Kajabi. Up here at the top, I'll just click the back button. Click back again to go right to the beginning. And if I come down here, can you see this two-step opt-in? If I click that, and then I come up here and I click show pop-up, here's the two-step opt-in. I could edit this now if I liked. And when I've finished editing, all I've got to do is just untick this box. And that's it. And of course, you can change any of these elements on this page if you liked. But, and this is important, the purpose of this registration page is to do only one thing. That's to get them to register. Nothing else. The more information that you put in their way to read, the less people will register. What you want to do, you want just enough to convince them it's going to be worth their time registering. So use curiosity. Make your headlines spell out the big benefit. Short, sweet, and to the point. Look at any of the registration pages of the top marketers. Every one of them, they've got pretty plain registration pages because that's what works. Anyway, let's now take a look at the confirmation page. The confirmation page, again, short and sweet, tells them to check their email and confirms the details, the time. And since it's going to be started in like 50 minutes, there really isn't much point putting anything else on this page. So let's just take a look at the webinar room. So here at the top, we've got your header. And if we come down here, this is a slide that they're going to see when they log in and they're waiting for the webinar to start. And of course, again, you can change all these details if you like. If we scroll down a little bit, underneath, this is where your video is going to live. In fact, I'll just upload one to show you. I'll just click on the slide. Now, we could also edit the text, the button, or whatever we want to do. But what I want to do is just upload a video. So I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to scroll down. Here, under video action, if I select that, I could upload a new file, or I could select a recent file. And since I've already got a video that we can use, I'll select a recent file. I'll pick that one. And then hit select, come down to the bottom and hit save, and there we go. And now the section underneath this here, this is the slide that they're going to see once the webinar is finished. And the button here, this is the button that's going to take them to the next step, which of course is the sales page. So we'll just save that and then take a look at the sales page. So when it comes to creating your sales page, remember, you've just spent however long teaching and addressing objections, so if you've done a decent job in your webinar, then you don't need to go creating long sales copy. You want just enough to reinforce what you've already covered and convince anyone on the fence to buy. So back in our pipeline, we'll take a peek at the sales page. Again, totally customizable. We can add sections. If we come over here, click add a section, there's all these things that we could add. We could add an image. We could add text. We could add text in an image. And then when they're ready to buy, the call to action button, when I click that, it takes them to the next step in the pipeline, which is the offer page or the checkout page. Same thing, really. And we're coming to the checkout page in a minute because I'm going to show you how to add an upsell via a follow-up email. And this actually converts really well. And to set this up, we're going to need the offer page. So we'll come to that in a minute. As we stand now, the webinar is set up to go. Well, almost. If I come up here to the blue webinar icon and select that, here under event actions, we've got a series of emails. The first one is you registered and it's got all the details, including the time and a link to watch the webinar. Then we've got the second one starting in 60 minutes. And in my case, since I'm running these like every 15 minutes, 60 minutes isn't really going to work. So we'll select that and we'll change this to 10 minutes. So I'll put 10 in the value field and under the units of time, we'll change that to minutes. In fact, if we thought this email was totally unnecessary, we could scroll down to the bottom and then click delete event email, but I'm going to keep it. I'll just hit save. And same for the 15-minute email. I'll change that to save 5 minutes. So we'll select it, change the value to 5 and hit save. And then next, we've got the webinar. Now, this is where we need to get a little creative. You see this email here, the one after the event, after the webinar. It's set to 1 day after the webinar to encourage people to buy. But here's the thing, and this is, well, it's a little annoying. So everybody's going to get this email, even those that actually bought on the webinar, since there's no way here to limit this email to only those who haven't bought. So this will confuse people who did buy. Now, there's a workaround here, and to show you, and I want you to look at this as a bonus because I'm going to give you a bit of a crash course in Kajabi automations. And this stuff is really powerful. But don't worry, I'm going to keep it simple. And then, just so you follow, I'm going to do a nice simple recap. Now before we do this, if you're only kind of semi-watching this video, just come back to me, just focus for the next couple of minutes because this is going to make you money. The first thing we're going to do, this email here, the one day after the event email, I'm going to delete it. I'll click on it, scroll to the bottom, and then hit delete event email. Confirm. There we go, it's gone. No follow-up email. What we're going to do is build our own sequence. In fact, we're going to build two sequences. One for people who didn't buy. We're going to send them an email, say, the day after, and then another email, a follow-up email, say, a couple of days after that. And for those that did buy, we're going to create a separate email sequence to remarket to them. We're going to give them an opportunity to buy another product. You'll see what I mean as we get into it. So first, the people who didn't buy. So I'm going to come out to pipelines. I'm going to click pipeline overview. So we get back to the main menu. Now we want new email campaign because we're going to make a sequence. So I'll come down here under marketing and then select email campaigns. I'll click new email campaign. We want email sequence, so I'll select that. Give it a name, webinar follow-up. Click continue. And because I'm old school, I'll go for the classic editor. So here under day, we've got it set to day 1. This means that one day after the event, the first email is going to be sent out to all those that have subscribed. And I'm going to show you in a minute exactly what we need to do to get the emails into the subscribed list. But the important part is the delay up here of one day, because we want this to go out the day after the event. So I'll just give this an internal title. No one else sees this but us. I'll just call it day 1. I'll give it a subject line. I'll paste in some text for the body and hit save. Now I'm going to add another email, otherwise it wouldn't be much of a sequence if we only had one email. So we'll click add email. Again, I'll use the classic editor. We'll have this on, say, day 3, so we'll change that to 3. So this email is going to be sent 3 days after they've subscribed. I'll give it an internal title. We'll call it day 3. I'll just paste in a subject line, paste in some copy for the body, and hit save. So here's our sequence. We've only got 2 emails for the purpose of this demonstration. In reality, you'd likely have 4, 5, or even more emails. But what we've got to do now, we now need to build the list. So here, under subscribe triggers, if I select that, then click add trigger, under when, we want event is registered. And the event, of course, is our webinar. So we'll select that, auto webinar, there it is, and then click save. What's going to happen now is everyone who registers for the webinar is going to be added to this list and are going to receive the emails. We now need a way to stop the emails if somebody buys. So we'll jump back and set this up. So we're still at our email sequence. What we're going to do is select unsubscribe. We'll select add trigger. And then under when, we want when offer is purchased. This is the condition that's going to remove them from the list and stop them getting any further emails. So we just need to select the offer in question. So we'll select that. And the offer was that one. And we'll select save. So now, in theory, what's going to happen is somebody signs up to the webinar, gets added to the list, the email sequence. If then at any point in time they buy, they then remove from this list and they'll stop getting the emails. And as an extra step, call it belt and bracelet if you like, we're going to set a condition on the checkout page. So let's open our pipeline again. So from the left, under marketing, we'll select pipelines. We'll select our pipeline. We'll scroll all the way down to offer checkout. We'll select that and then come right the way down to the bottom and then here add automation. We want when offer is purchased, which is already selected. And then next, under then, we want the action, which is the trigger that we want to be the unsubscribe. So we'll select unsubscribe from email sequence. We'll select the email sequence, which is webinar follow-up, and then click save. So we've now got 2 separate actions to make sure that they are removed from the list. This takes care of the follow-up emails for those that don't buy during the webinar. Now, next step. And this is where a lot of people, they leave money on the table. Once somebody has bought from you and they've gone through your content, assuming of course you did a good job, they're thinking, you really know your stuff. You've got trust. Now, this is the ideal time to follow up and offer them another product, maybe even some private coaching to take them to the next level. Now, you don't want to do this right after the sale, but after about 5 days or so later, that's the sweet spot. So what we're going to do, and it's very similar to what we've already done, we're going to create a follow-up sequence to upsell. So let's jump back to Kajabi. So we're still on the offers page, and this is where we're going to set up another email sequence to anybody that buys a product to offer them an upsell. So again, I want to come down here to the bottom and click Add Automation. And then we want When Offer is Purchased. And next, under the Then field, we want to subscribe to an email sequence, and we need to select the sequence. Now, to save time, because this lesson is already getting kinda long, I've already created a follow-up sequence called Upsell. And then from the drop-down box, we'll find Upsell. There it is. Select that and then click Save. Scroll up to the top and make sure we save the offers page. So that's the offer page and the automation sorted. All we've got to do now is jump over to the email campaign for the upsell and set that up. So to get to the email sequences, we want to come to Marketing, Email Campaigns, and then the upsell email sequence is here. So if we select that, here I've got 2 emails set up. Now, if this was a real sequence, I'd probably have 4, maybe 5 emails starting at, say, day 5 after the purchase and then spaced out about 2 days apart, which is what I've done here. 1 email goes out on day 5, 1 email goes out on day 7. And if you recall, anyone who buys a first offer is going to get added to this email sequence, which is going to promote an upsell. Now, what we need to do is set a trigger. So if they do buy the upsell, then they don't receive any more emails promoting it. So if we come up here to unsubscribe, we need to set a trigger. So we'll select there, we'll select Add Trigger. And under When, we want Offer is Purchased. And then we need to select the offer. Scroll down. It's that one there. And then the action is unsubscribe from an email sequence. And the email sequence is Upsell. So with all that done, we'll click Save. And we're done. Wow, this lesson is a long one. Longer than I normally do. But I really didn't want to miss anything out that's going to help you. Now, if you've got value, give me a like. Maybe even hit the subscribe button. And if you've got questions or comments, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. So until next time, bye for now.